Hi, folks. Today we're going to learn about population density and the what is known as the rural-urban divide in the United States. And you can read this little overview paragraph to kind of understand what we're going to be looking at. But basically, we're asking a question: what are the differences between development levels in the United States in rural and urban areas? If you remember from previous geography units, the words rural and urban, they basically refer to population density. A city, a downtown area, is known as an urban area, whereas the countryside is known as rural. And so we're going to look at the differences between those two places as characterized by population density data. So a place with high population density, which is population divided by area, is going to be an urban area, and a place with low population density is going to be known as a non-urban or a rural area. And we're going to compare those two things. The instructions are here, but I'm going to walk through how to do this and show you how to complete this ArcGIS assignment. If this is your first of these assignments, remember that on this document, you're going to answer all the questions in red. You're going to use a different color font, or you're going to highlight your answers, which makes it easy for us to grade. It's on Canvas, so unlike what we did in my geography classes before we switched to remote instruction, you are going to actually make your own copy of this and then submit that on Canvas rather than just typing on this document and submitting it that way. So just a slightly different way of doing things, but everything else is pretty similar. So to begin with, we need to open a map, and the map is linked right here. So if we open this map, this is a fairly complex map. It is of the United States, but it is made up of thousands and thousands of what are known as census tracts. Census tracts are smaller than counties generally, and they're created by the Census Bureau to try to create a geographic area that has about the same amount of population as every other census tract. There are about 27,000 census tracts in the United States that are characterized as urban, and about 55,000 characterized as rural. So if you look at the map, you can see the vast majority of the map here, and we can scroll over here and zoom out a little. Vast majority of the United States is this gray, which is signified as non-urban, with pockets of red, which is considered urban. But if we do the math on this, actually more people in the United States live in the red urban areas than live in the gray non-urban areas. So the population density in the red area is significantly higher than these other places. So going back to the instructions, we're going to use what's known as the Social Vulnerability Index, and this is something that's created by the United States Centers for Disease Control. So this is basically the same group that is giving us information on the pandemic, on the coronavirus, which causes the disease COVID-19, but they also keep a lot of other statistics for us. So we're going to use a tool known as a filter. And some of you have done this before. If you've been in my class, you already know how to do this. But even if you haven't, just follow along with what I do, follow the written instructions, and you should have no problem at all. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to filter out all of the census tracts that are gray. Because if we want to look at the difference between rural and urban, we have got to eliminate the non-urban census tracts to begin with. So we're going to go into content over here, and we're going to hover over this filter icon right here. And we're going to tell the computer how we want to filter this. There's a bunch of attributes for every census tract. There's the county name. There's this stuff, which we'll get into in a little bit. There's all these different things that we don't need to use. And at the very bottom is this thing called urban area. An urban area is a yes or no question. Is the place an urban area or not? So if we only want to display the urban areas on the map, we're going to tell it, okay, if urban area is yes, then show it. And if you click this little button over here called unique, then it's going to say, okay, what are all the unique characteristics, all the unique attributes of the field urban area? And basically it's yes or nothing is in that field. So if it's a yes, that's an urban area. urban area is yes. So if we apply the filter, what we're going to see is all the gray census tracts will disappear from the map because they've been filtered out. So let's go ahead and do that. And you'll notice that it deletes everything and then it redraws just the red ones. So now we have just urban areas in the United States. So what we want to know is, what's the average level of poverty? What's the average income level? Income achievement level. What is the average income in general? We're going to use, how likely is somebody to speak English as their primary language? Several different characteristics. And we can find all that information in the table. So if we open the table up like this by clicking on this little icon, then we get a list of 27,327 features. Every one of those is a red census tract, which is in an urban area. So let's zoom in on Denver and see how big those census tracts are. Of course, Windsor is not included because in our definition here, it doesn't meet the criteria of being an urban area, but Denver does. That's because of population density, and this is the downtown area of Denver. And as we zoom in, we can see this is the size of the census tracts. So if I click on one, and this one is near downtown Denver, if I drag this down so we can see the entire pop-up, we can see this urban area. It has its own name, but basically the poverty level in this urban area is 16%. The average income is 81,000. We'll get into what all these are, but those that are classified as minority or have limited English ability, they're all listed here. So we'll get into what all these mean. Well, one thing we could do to figure out what the average poverty level was in all the urban areas in the United States is we could add up every one of these numbers and divide by this number, which is the total. That would give us an average. And that would take us forever. But some of you may remember that there is a quick little tool in ArcGIS that we can use. If we just click on the title, EPPOV, which stands for the estimate of poverty, and choose statistics, we end up getting a bunch of values. Let's go back to our instructions for a second. And right here it says in the attributes table, click on the EPPOV field heading, then statistics. This is the estimated percent in poverty. So going back to our map, in all the urban areas in the United States, the average percentage of people in poverty is right here, 19.49. So we can copy that, just use Control-C, go back over to our instructions, and this would of course be your copy that you've made. Go down to the table and say, okay, we're looking at urban areas because that's the filter we chose, and we're looking at the estimated percentage of people in poverty. We're going to paste that number in there with Control-V. So that's the poverty level in urban areas. And then what we can do is we can go back to the table, can close this, and we can find the average in all these other categories. So if we see all of them are right here. Well, what do those codes mean? We know that one means poverty. If you go back up to the instructions here, it tells you. Repeat this process for PCI, which is per capita income, NOHSDP, no high school diploma. So what percentage of people don't have a diploma in that urban area, in that census tract, I should say. MIN, what is the percentage of racial and ethnic minorities living there, and LIMENG, percentage of people with limited English speaking ability. So another language is their primary language. You can think about what all that means at the end of this, but for now we just want to get the numbers. So you're going to go back through and do exactly what I showed you how to do with all of these, and then fill them into the table. So then we have our urban areas done. Well, now what we want to do, let's zoom back out. Instead of just focusing on the urban areas, we want to focus now on the non-urban areas, the part that aren't red. And right now we filtered out all those places. So if we go back into our filter again, we're going to change the filter. Now right now you can see it says urban area is yes. Well, let's edit the filter. And this is a real simple one. Instead of saying urban area is yes, remember the only other choice is nothing. So only a yes shows up. There's no choice in this case. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to look at our choice of operators here. And we're going to say, well, how about if the urban area is blank? because if the urban area is blank, that's the same thing as saying not yes. And so that would mean the urban area is not urban, or the census tract is not urban. If we apply a filter, now what we get is just the gray, and you'll notice there's no red being drawn anywhere. And this will take a while. There are a lot of census tracts in the United States, 80,000 of them, and you don't have to wait for them to completely draw. But if we zoom in and we go kind of try to zoom in on our area, there's not going to be really any distinguishing characteristics of these features, but if we kind of remember where we are and we know what our streets look like, even though Windsor isn't exclusively listed in this layer, when we zoom in, we do see it. So we can see there's Windsor right in there. And so you can look, as you can see, in the town of Windsor, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 census tracts right there. And if we zoom in a little bit more, you can kind of see that. And then, of course, Windsor includes this area down here. So there's a few more kind of in the part of town where the high school is, which would be right here. You click on that, it tells us, how many people are living there, what percentage of the people live in poverty, and all those other characteristics. So you can see, you'll notice there's no one living there that have limited English speaking abilities. Only 6% live in poverty. Average income is $30,000 per year, $30,500. So we can do the same thing with this as we did before. We can go back to our table and say, all right, well, now we've got 45,000. I think I said 55,000. I forgot the number. But we can see there's 45,000 non-urban census tracts in the United States. So again, just click on poverty level, choose statistics. We get all this. What we want is the average, 14.84. So if you remember, the average poverty level in urban areas was actually 19.49. So the average poverty level in non-urban areas is less, 14.84. So the percentage of people living in poverty in urban areas is higher than the percentage of people in non-urban areas. Go back to your map, do the same thing with all of these, and fill out your chart. So at this point, this has taken me about 10 minutes to get here. Of course, I've done this before, and I wrote this assignment, so I know, I can move through this a little faster than you can. You should count on this probably taking you about 30 minutes to get to this point. Now what you want to do, the real meat of this assignment is this. Answer these questions here. From the table, which has the highest per capita income, and we're meaning rural or urban areas, which has the lowest poverty rate, so on and so forth. There's some really basic questions here. And then when you get down to 9 and 10, these are a little more challenging. How could the proportion of those with limited English have an impact on the average urban wages and poverty levels? So you want to think about that. If someone has limited English ability, who are those people? And what would that perhaps do to wages and poverty? If someone doesn't speak English, what's that going to do to wages? What's that going to do to their chance of being poor? And who are those people there? So take a little more time on that one. Same thing with this one. This is kind of the payoff question here. What are we getting at? Which is more developed, urban or non-urban areas, and why or why not? Got a short conclusion you want to read, and then go ahead and submit, just like we said. Take your copy, and in Canvas, go ahead and submit the assignment. We will get a notification that the assignment's been submitted, and we'll grade it as soon as we can get to it. If you have any technical questions, my email's at the bottom of the document. Like if you have difficulty logging into ArcGIS, or if you don't understand something, feel free to send me an email. I will answer it as quickly as I can. Good luck, and let me know if you need anything else.